This podcast is brought to you by The Nature of Things, beautifully crafted essential oils. These guys are based in Dublin, but originally from Paris, and they provide really pure essential oils that are really good for your yoga practice, for your general life, your general well-being. And if you check them out, you see that they're doing really good stuff, and they're pretty fancy. If you go on to thenatureofthings.ie and you put in the promo code YOGALIFE, you get 10% off all products, and that actually includes their diffusers as well. They have these recycled bamboo fibers, and in like 6 different colors. So yeah, check them out if you like to get someone you love maybe a Christmas present. That could be a good option. If you'd like to get yourself some Christmas presents in the form of food or household products, you can go to smallchanges.ie and find them. They're actually based in Drumcondra, as you may know if you listen to this podcast already. And yeah, they don't have an online offering, but if you go in there, just check them out. I mean, that they believe in looking after the community and trying to reduce their impact on the environment. So I think if we all do a little bit like that, it's going to make a big difference. Yeah, if you'd like to come to a workshop, my next one is in December. That's December the 14th in Salt and Soul in Sligo, and that's handstand workshop. And don't worry, you don't need to handstand to be able to do it. I'd just like to share some tips with you and hopefully make the practice fun so you want to do it again. So today is just me. So without further ado, here's me. Hello out there. This is Kevin. It might sound a bit echo in here because the boiler in my house is broken, so we've had no heating for the last week, and it's November. So this is the only room in the house that is relatively warm, and therefore might sound echo, but hopefully it sounds okay for you. And I also have a puppy on my lap, Alfie. He's the latest addition to the family, and so if you hear dog noises, that's not me, just to let you know. This episode is just with me because for the last month or so, maybe about 2 months, I've been thinking about a major transition, and that is one into video. This is because my intention for this podcast and for my life is to learn through communication. So soon, all of the conversations I'll be having with people, they're going to be available to watch on YouTube. I did this poll maybe a month and a half ago on Instagram, saying to people, would you like to see the Yoga Life podcast on video? And overwhelmingly everyone said yes, which was great. But I've done 74 episodes over the last year and a half, and without doubt, doing a podcast has been the best decision I've made, because it's been such a great way to meet new people. As a yoga teacher, you're a freelancer, and it can get pretty lonely. You're very isolated. You're on your own quite a lot, and some of the guests that have been on the podcast have stayed with me and my girlfriend for entire weekends. So I've learnt loads about different types of people from different backgrounds, different experiences. And these are people that I would probably never have got a chance to meet in my day-to-day life because I spend so much time alone. So it's been fantastic. But it feels like, and I don't know if you'd agree with this, but 30 to 60 minutes to get to know someone is, on audio only, is scratching the surface. Especially, as the listener, you can't see the body language, facial expressions. You can't see all the other non-verbal cues. And I was doing a bit of research behind this about non-verbal communication, and here's some stats for you. In 1967, the Journal of Consulting Psychology published a study conducted by 2 researchers that found that 93% of how humans communicate is non-verbal in nature. But you might have already known that. And I think sometimes we kind of forget that because we rely so much on words. I know I do. Also, this short window of time that you have with someone, for me it feels a bit too transactional. It feels like I'm doing a Q&A. I mean, I'm not an interviewer. I'm actually no good at interviewing people. And hearing an hour-long Q&A session doesn't resonate with me. I'm striving to create something that I would want to listen to, that gives as much value as possible. So, what do we value as humans? I think honesty, information, maybe some humour, or any other human emotion. Because I spend so much time listening to podcasts that are 2, 3, 4 hours long. And how often do you sit down in front of someone for more than an hour and just talk? No one else in the room, no windows to watch people passing by, no phones, just 2 of you sitting with each other, talking, listening. When you sit down with someone face to face with no distractions, I feel like you reach a level of connection that you can't get in day-to-day life. When you do 30 minutes or less, it's really just small talk and pleasantries. I think that we all want to be heard, we want to be seen, we want to be understood, and the most effective way to do that with each other is unedited, long-form conversations. Because we only have so much time in our life. And I'm so conscious because we're all getting older, and it's so important I find to prioritize my time. And I've realized that podcasting is exploding, particularly long-form, unedited shows. And people like unscripted discussions. I think that intuitively we understand that we're being drip-fed text data through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then when you're drip-fed this, it's not nourishing. It feels to me there's a growing appetite for longer-form conversations, more, and this is way more than we assumed, I think, by popular culture, because social media is great, but it's junk food for your brain, and it can rot your soul. It's long-form, unedited, unscripted podcasts are like a big banquet with good company. They can feed your mind, and maybe nourish your soul. Depends what they're talking about, of course. So I have now made the big, albeit expensive and time-consuming, leap into video. I'm surrounded here by boxes from Amazon with all the gear, and I believe it's going to be worth the effort, because I want to create a space to allow the most open way of communicating that I can. And I'm hoping that by making these conversations available in video to anyone and everyone, it's going to give a more well-rounded, open, and a more inclusive way of communicating, because that's the key. I think the best way to learn from each other is to open dialogue and communicate. See, I'm not very good at many things. I'm fully aware of that. But I've always liked talking to people. Even when I've talked about this before in the podcast, when I was in school, I was always causing mischief. I was, the little boy who was always talking and messing around with others, because I was always curious about other people. I found people interesting. I would usually be like asking really like direct questions to people and kind of socially awkward questions. And then as I became an adult, it didn't really change. I used to like love organising parties. I'd always be the person that everyone come to my house before they went out. And then as I got older, I've settled down a bit, but communication is still my passion. I know I hate that word, is so overused, but it's just how I am. I always find that when I'm walking down the street, I see people I know and I want to stop and talk, and maybe they don't, but and I'm always chatting after class, and because I just love conversing with people. And sometimes I talk too much, though. I'm aware of that, and I need to listen a bit more. But yeah, as you get older, you reflect, and we learn to hopefully change. And I've noticed now, with the advent of social media, that some ways are more effective for communicating than others, especially for me. And this is so important to take note of as yoga teachers, because we're giving guidance to people and we want to help them, but it's important to understand that the teaching doesn't stop off the mat, and we are available on social media, and what we do is really important, and the messages we put across, and that we're accountable for them. And when I say we, I'm talking about me, by the way. Just saying the royal we, as it were. My social media pages are mostly yoga tips, guidance, because I find that Instagram is brilliant, but the name itself comes from I don't even know this, but it comes from the word instant telegram. That's how they got the name Instagram, and it's a tool, and like every tool has a purpose. A hammer's great. Its purpose is to build, to mend, to repair. But if we don't use it for its purpose, it can be bad. Like, you wouldn't cook your dinner with a hammer. I hope not. But Instagram is a photography platform. The information is the value is visual. So we place so much emphasis on what we see, and that's not our fault, because, and I did the research behind this, because last weekend actually I was doing the teacher training, teaching the trainees, as it were, and I was talking about how we communicate as humans and what we pick up on, and the hierarchy of human senses is sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell, in that order. And I was discussing this with the trainees last week, and there's actually newer evidence to say, so sight is number one. We hate to think it, but we actually make judgments on what we see. But in fact, actually, there is evidence pointing to that the number one sense for some cultures is sound, because some cultures are more musically orientated than others, and they place more value on sound than sight, which is kind of interesting. It can be a cultural thing as well. But Instagram, I'm going off on a tangent there. Instagram was built for people to let you know, oh, I'm having a green smoothie in the morning, I'm drinking my coffee, here's my hashtag. It's not real life. I mean, you're like, duh, I'm sure you know that. But for instant messages and photos, it's brilliant. But if you look at my IG account, that's what the kids are calling these days, not Instagram, IG, or IG, I heard someone say the other day, every photo in my account has been carefully thought out. If you actually look at the last week of posts that I made compared to what my real life is like, I don't show me cleaning up puppy poo at 5 a.m. in the morning, wearing my girlfriend's dressing gown. That's way too small for me. A dressing gown is a house coat, that's what they call it in Ireland. I don't show me being impatient with my dad as we're trying to sort out the plumbing here in the house. I don't show me pulling my hair out with my income tax report. That's all personal stuff. And I don't feel like that really helps anyone. I feel like it's more of a distraction. So I treat IG, I'm going to say IG actually, I treat IG like a tool for promoting, for very, very basic information, like sharing times, dates, where I'm going to be. That's my intention with Instagram, with IG. I say Instagram. Sometimes I get distracted and I post a picture of my dog, but no one's perfect. I said I wouldn't, but he's just so gorgeous, so I can't help myself. But the best thing about Instagram is that you can connect with anyone, and almost every single person that has been a guest on this podcast I've met through Instagram. Instagram is unbelievable for broadcasting. I mean, there's been nothing like it before. Everyone's got a voice. So if they're which is important, not just, think about worst case scenario. If there was a totalitarian dictator about to come into power from the other side of the world, the people that are going to be affected by that could instantly disseminate that information. So they could broadcast that across the world instantly, and then anyone could come and help support them. That is amazing. There's never been a tool like this that offers that potential, and it really decentralizes power at unbelievable scale. So that is brilliant. It's also, like on a smaller scale, it's great for organizing, getting people together, where we need marches or activities, events, that type of thing, to just bring people together. But for me, that is where the value of Instagram ends. If I knew that people would come to every class, workshop, retreat that I hosted, I wouldn't have an Instagram account. I wouldn't even be on social media. I didn't get it for ages. I only got on Instagram 2 years ago. My thoughts were, why would I take a picture of myself and share it with people I don't know? That's odd. Like when I first started teaching, which wasn't too long ago actually, but I wasn't very tech savvy, which is kind of surprising because I work for an AI company. But anyway, I wasn't social media savvy. I used to do posters and put them up in the community halls, and then someone said to me, "You should do an Instagram account. You don't have to pay to print posters." So that I thought, okay, great. I'll just use it to promote classes. And now the main reason I use Instagram a big reason is to promote this podcast, to promote something that focuses on creating a space for real life connections, for open discussions, so we can actually discuss, share ideas, and hopefully have open dialogue. Because in my experience, short form mediums like texting, social media posts, they're so easily misread, misinterpreted, misunderstood. When messaging, you don't I am terrible at texting, and I've been told this so many times. I don't do emojis that often, unless I'm feeling particularly excited about something. I often don't say hi to the person or even bye. It's very kind of binary. I don't mean anything by that. I just am very kind of straightforward. And or maybe that's the wrong word. I'm not very expressive in my texting anyway, but I like to think I am in my voice in real life. But because when you're texting, you don't see the other person's expression. You don't actually get to see their demeanor. You don't see. Most importantly, you don't get a sense for the context. The human race didn't evolve to communicate like this, and all these conveniences that we have in modern society, which have been afforded to us by technology, mean that the puppy's making a noise. I'll give him a little stroke. The more time we spend with technology, the less time we spend together. So you don't need, for example, if you're walking down the road, you don't need to actually speak to someone to go somewhere. You just Google Map it. Even for me, like I have a new puppy now with me and my girlfriend, and I could have spoke to the lady next door and ask her, who has a dog, and say, how do you look after a puppy? What was your thing? How did you do it? Get her advice. But instead I just Google it. And that, although that is great and it's very convenient, it's driving us apart. instead of bringing us together. And this is why I really think that video is going to be so powerful in terms of communication on a greater scale. So I'm going to move to video content. I mean, audio, as I said, has been great. So I've met loads of cool people who've had real life experiences and opinions, and I've learned so much that I would never had a chance to do that. And then I can share these important conversations with other people all around the world. Even if no one ever listened to this podcast, the process of creating an episode every week has taught me how to sit with people, how to look them in the eye, to be considerate to their feelings, which is something I'm always working on. Like, I come across as quite blunt, as I said in text, but with podcasting, I sit 3 feet away from the other person. We both wear headphones, so we're locked into dialogue, and it feels so direct. So it's like really, really personal. There's no interruptions. Like if me and you were sitting out for dinner, we'd be making small talk about the menu, the waiter would come over, people would be passing by the table, and that's all good. But we'd have the chats. But it's not like podcasting where there is a discussion and we can work around questions and consider other perspectives and have the freedom, which is so rare in this day and age, to actually share ideas. And you get the chance to listen to uninterrupted discourse. It's uncensored, it's undirected. This is just me. There's no I do everything, absolutely everything. There's no producer, it's not a big team. It's me on my own, mostly sitting in someone's housecoat. And I think that this is something, this uninterrupted discourse, uncensored discourse, is something that we're really missing from our human culture. And I think that's why podcasting is so needed by us now. Because if you'd have asked me 10 years ago if someone would listen to an hour of someone they've never met talking one way to them on their phone, I would say there's no way. Having worked in AI, I would have thought, AI is artificial intelligence. Having worked in artificial intelligence, I would have said that the communication is only going to accelerate. This where now we're doing Vines, and then it's Snapchat. It's like, how little can our concentration be? And I think that we technologists have sometimes underestimated the capacity for the human brain and the human soul to take in and understand information. And now I think people, I know I do, yearn for a more relaxed pace of dialogue where there's a break, from your frantic pace of your work life. You can sit without having to feel obliged to reply and just listen to two people talking. And this is something I've always been really interested in, because I want to learn more about the human nature. Because 100,000 years ago, our ancestors, wherever they're from, I don't know, but it's up for debate, they would have sat around a campfire having a discussion about important issues. They would have talked through, and they would say, here are the things we agree on, here are the things we agreed to disagree on, and they would have come to a reasonable resolution, because that is the human nature. That's human nature. But with Instagram, IG, Facebook, it's the exact opposite. When you sit with each other, if you could just picture it now, if you're sitting around a campfire, under the stars, no smartphone, no TV, no movies, no recorded music, the entertainment was each other, and it weren't rushed. The sun goes down, no one's going to bed for a few hours, so let's talk, let's tell stories, maybe make each other laugh, maybe sing. And that's what we did as we evolved as people. But now, I mean, I haven't learned to sing, but I have learned to, I'm trying to learn not to interrupt, how not to talk so much, how to listen, what my blind spots are, and how I can better understand people that I have never had the opportunity to meet until I started a podcast. So this is why it's so important for me to strive to be a better communicator in my teaching, in my learning too. So now I'm hoping to introduce a visual aspect, so that when because I really appreciate people spending their time out of their day to listen, and I think that you get way more value if you could see people, and it creates a more real experience, more human. It's like you can feel the sense of connection because you can see what's going on. So yeah, I'm going on a bit here, but to close, I'll say, well, firstly, thank you to everyone who's from all over the world who's left really lovely reviews online. And also thank you to someone who left not a lovely review, but then they later deleted it. But that's good too. I mean, it's important to know all feedback is welcome and should be allowed. To everyone that's like come out time and time again for the live events, it means a lot to me. And to everyone, that's been really kind on the street as well, and just like say in the studio, or when like when I was in Bali, this couple in a temple came up to me and my girlfriend and said, "Oh, we listened to your podcast," and they were from New Zealand. I was like, "Wow, that's so cool." So to all of you and everyone taking the time to listen, I promise that I'm going to keep doing my best to deliver real conversation, maybe less of me talking and more listening, but more value, more connection. And in fact, actually, the next maybe you don't care about this, but then the new gadget that I just invested in is called a Rodecaster Pro. If you're kind of a bit geeky like me, feel free to Google Rodecaster Pro, and it can allow up to 4 guests. So at the same time, because I want to do more like group conversations to get more opinions, and you'll be able to actually call in to the show. I feel embarrassing saying it's a show, it's not. But you'll be able to call in and actually chat in real time. So like you can call in like a radio show and say, "Oh, I don't agree with that. This is why." And also you can do live streaming with it. So you could actually watch the conversation in real time and then be like, I want to make a point there and call up. So that's going to be pretty cool. I'm really looking forward to that. So we'll see how that goes. But it's going to be a massive learning curve because I've learned so much about this so far, and you'll be able to see the whole evolution of this because and you'll be basically part of the journey. And it ain't going to be pretty. There's going to be a fair few bumps because some of it won't look very polished, but I'm focusing on progress, not perfection. So that's all I have to say about my intention. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I've got some interesting people coming up in the next few weeks, and until next week, God bless and peace. Thanks so much for listening. This podcast was brought to you by Small Changes, organic, eco-friendly store here in Ireland where you can buy household products or food that help to look after your inner ecosystem and the outer ecosystem. Yeah, there's no online offering. Just go in and buy some stuff if you want to, and feel free to tell them that Kevin sent you if you like. They're lovely in there, and they do loads of other stuff outside the community. Like Pada, who's been on the podcast before, he does tons for the community and for people with challenges. So yes, if you'd like to come to a workshop of mine, next one is in December. That's on the 14th in Salt and Soul in Sligo. All information can be found on kevinboyleyoga.ie. Thanks as always for listening. I really appreciate it. Feel free to share a review on iTunes. and maybe share this episode or podcast with a loved one. Okay, I'll catch up with you next week. See ya.